What's important right now is this football. College football is back, which means the college football playoff and the conversation around that starts today, right? We had a jam-packed Saturday, I guess Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday of college football. And we got to get to the biggest things we got to get to. Obviously, the number one thing on the docket was that Georgia Clemson game, right? One of the things that I enjoy about teams in college football who are willing to go, whether it's on the road, on a neutral site, wherever it is, and go play somebody good and kind of, see where you stand. I appreciate that. So when I saw the docket, oh my gosh, when I saw the line, I think Georgia was minus 12.5. So I was like, okay, minus 12.5 for a college football game is a small, I won't say a small line, but it's supposed to not be a blowout. You lose by 13 points in college football. It was a good game, right? Notre Dame ended up beating whoever they played, Texas A&M in Texas A&M by 10. It was a good game, right? Even though it was double figures. So when it's 12.5, Vegas is telling you like, hey, Georgia's better than them. They're probably more talented than them, but Clemson's no slouch. So they'll come, they'll compete. It's a neutral site. And it was the Georgia Dome. So is it really a neutral site? I couldn't tell you. But nevertheless, so Georgia kind of did what Georgia does, right? They ended up winning 34-3. And when you hear 34-3, it sounds kind of like, oh, yeah, that Clemson got their ass whooped. They did technically, but if you're watching that game, it was 6-0 at halftime. Neither offense could really get any rhythm. Both defenses, even if they would give up a big play, really responded well. It was one of those like situations where you could tell like, oh, Clemson, Georgia might be a little more talented, just like over the like just generally. But Clemson's well coached. Clemson's got talent as well, and Clemson's not gonna roll over because it's Georgia. Now, it seems like for whatever reason, in the second half, Georgia went inside in the halftime, made some adjustments, came out, and they couldn't be stopped in the second half. They came out, scored a touchdown, quick, boom, 13-0. Clemson had to respond. Had a great drive, ended with a field goal, 13-3. Georgia, touchdown, 20-3. Now you're Clemson, you're like, oh, shit. Like, now it's about to get, their offense has found rhythm. We're on our heels. Got to do something. Of course, once you get down 3 scores and now you kind of have to get one-dimensional, it gets tough. Nothing for Clemson. Georgia scores again. Boom, 27-3. Now it's a routing. So that's kind of how the game went. Once it started to go downhill, it snowballed for Clemson. But I can respect saying, hey, let's hit the road. Let's go play the best team in college football, and let's see where we stand, right? It's risky. A lot of teams want, the Alabama tradition of playing the Ducks at home so that you can kind of just get some rhythm and get some confidence and not shoot your players' confidence early, because the risk you run if you're Clemson is, hey, we were top 15. We got a lot of confidence coming into the season. We're going to win the ACC, blah, 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 blah. And you go get, beat down, and it kind of just makes you like, oh, crap, like, are we really that good? That is something that is a real worry. So, of course, you can understand where coaches would say, oh, I don't want to do that yet. Maybe week 2, maybe week 3. Let's let my quarterback get a 5-touchdown game under his belt or something. Like maybe week 2 or 3. But no, they came out. They said, hey, look, that's what we want to do. So let's do it. And we'll live with the results. And they did just that. I'm very, 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 very cool with Clemson going out there even if they lose 34-3. I don't see any reason why Georgia does not win the whole thing. I just don't. I cannot see at all why Georgia would not go whatever it is, 12-0, 13-0, 14-15, 16-0, whatever the NO is. Why I don't see any team beating Georgia. Every game that I see Georgia play, I'm going to bet them, and I'm going to bet them to cover every spread. I don't care if the spread is 60 points. I don't care if the spread is 15 points. They could be a 30-point favorite against Alabama. I'm still picking Georgia. I don't care. They are way too talented. They've got too much size. They've got too much speed. They've got too great a coaching. It's not. They people got to realize Georgia hasn't lost a regular season game, and I want to say 3 years, and it might be 4. And they didn't make the college football playoff last year because of a conference championship loss to Alabama. And that's the only reason why the best team in football didn't make it, right? We talked a lot about Florida State and them getting in or them not getting in, when the real talk probably should have been, why is Georgia not in, right? But neither here nor there. That's 2023. We are now, or that's the 2023-2024 season. We are now in the 2024-2025 season. So one of the things to talk about, one of the things that I kept reading a lot of was Dabo, right? He kind of was the sweetheart. He had Deshaun Watson and Trevor Lawrence. But I'm reading a lot about how Dabo doesn't like dabble in the transfer portal. And I'm not quite sure why. Now he's been quoted saying, I might be able to find this clip. It's real short, but he's been quoted on pods or on whatever saying, oh, most of these players in the transfer portal aren't good enough to come play here at Clemson, which is I get it, right? Like, if that's how you feel, that's how you feel. But I think that one of the interesting points is and I apologize, I'm still trying to see if I can't find it. But one of the interesting things is like the transfer portal is a way for, oh my gosh, I might not be able to find it, guys. The transfer portal is just a way for like really good, talented players to go somewhere else for an opportunity, or someone who didn't get an opportunity or a coach left or whatever to just kind of come move. You see quarterbacks are starting to be very, very successful in the transfer portal. Very successful. And I can't find that clip, but it is what it is. Quarterbacks are starting to be really successful. You saw Cam Ward had a great Saturday. We'll talk about him here in a little bit in Miami. And I think that the reality of it is when you look at college basketball and you start talking about Coach K, how Coach K, Roy Williams, Jay Wright, like these guys all retired within a span of 5 years, some of these greats, and you start wondering like, okay, like why? And you see the things with the transfers and all this stuff. And I think a lot of coaches don't want to deal with it, and he might be one of those, but those coaches were old enough, had been around long enough, and had solidified Hall of Fame careers where they could say, all right, I'm out. I don't think he's necessarily done that just yet. So he has to keep going. And he's kind of trying to stand on this principle of not necessarily liking the transfer portal. He probably doesn't like the NIL. And so he's like trying to prove a point like, oh, we didn't have to get like, I already know that he's got the speech written for if he wins another title. We didn't have to go to the transfer portal. We didn't have to do da-da-da-da. We did it the old-fashioned way and still showed that you can win. We know like Dabo loves a moment to like do some corny stuff like that. So we know good and well that he is waiting so that he can, get at everybody with a win. The problem is it seems like every year Clemson is underachieving. It seems like every year their expectation is lower and lower. And that team who was pretty much guaranteed to win the ACC, guaranteed to make the college football playoff and possibly the championship, they're just not that program anymore. And at what point, if you're Clemson, do you say, hey, Dabo, you either got to get with the times or college football is going to pass you by. And when it does, you don't need to be here for it. We're going to have to get somebody else, right? So I don't think it's the best idea for Dabo to be not going to the transfer portal. But, hey, I'm not the one, the coach making millions of dollars. He is. So it is what it is. I do think that we do have the clear, like, tier one teams with all the talent and all. I mean, a lot of teams have a lot of talent, but tier ones, we clearly know Georgia, Texas, Ohio State. Like, those three are kind of in a class. And then you want to put, like, the tier two. You probably want to put Alabama at the top of the tier two. I wouldn't put Michigan in the top of the tier two because of how much talent they lost, but they are still a tier two. You got Penn State is really good. Notre Dame is really good. Oregon is good. They struggled, but they're still pretty good. Obviously, Michigan, like I said, Tennessee is really good. And Miami, who showed you guys that they are not here for that nonsense of underachieving like they have the last 2 years. Miami is here with Cam Ward. Miami is here. and they walked into Florida, beat them boys 41-17. Those were two teams, two coaches who their first two seasons at those programs had not going exactly the way they wanted to. But those two teams, but Miami and Cam Ward, yeah, they went nuts. They went nuts. The thing for Miami is this. I mean, not Miami, sorry. The thing for Florida is this. Florida has the number one toughest schedule in all of the FBS. Florida, I would not be surprised if Florida's coach gets let go after this season. And it's not really any fault of his own, right? But Florida's not the national power that Urban Meyer brought them to be. They haven't succeeded the way they wanted to over the last 2 years. And this year, they might win 4 games. Now, Florida is going to be a team that's got talent, and they're going to make they're going to, crush somebody's dreams of something because they're too talented. And I don't think they'll lose all these games. But Florida on their schedule still has Texas A&M. They got to go on the road to Tennessee. They got Georgia. They got to go on the road to Texas. They got LSU. They got Ole Miss. And they got to go on the road against Florida State, who we did see Florida State lose to Georgia Tech. But they got to go on the road to Florida State. By the way, Georgia, Texas, LSU, Ole Miss, Florida State, that's their last 5 games in a row. And like we said, Texas A&M lost to Notre Dame. I don't know if that puts them out of the top 25 or not because they were number 20 and Notre Dame was 7. But you got Texas A&M as well. That's also me not mentioning Kentucky, who I guarantee you by the time they play Kentucky will be ranked in the top 25. Florida might win 4 games, even though they got the toughest schedule. That's something you can't do at Florida. I wouldn't be surprised, mark my words, if Florida's coach is not let go. And if he's not let go, if he's not like on the hot seat. So that's just another thing there. And then, of course, we got to address the elephant in the room. Colorado, Deion Sanders and the boys, Shedeur Sanders, Travis Hunter, took on North Dakota State and barely got out of there. Now, let me start with this. The last time I spoke on Deion, y'all said I was hating because I said, hey, man, what does it really do for you to go up on Twitter and going back and forth, and you're saying y'all going back and forth with people who don't really matter. All it does is put a target. I was hating, apparently, right? And then North Dakota State comes in there. And let me be clear about something here. North Dakota State, for those of you who don't know, North Dakota State is not your typical FCS program. Most people, when you hear FCS, you think of FCS Midwest, FCS Southeast, those real bad FCS schools. North Dakota State's not that. Remember, that's where Carson Wentz went to school. That's where Trey Lance went to school. North Dakota State, if you put them in Conference USA or you put them in the American, they will compete for the conference titles. It's not like they played one of those FCS schools you think of when you talk about FCS opponents. 2021, they were the FCS champions. 2022, they were the runner-up, lost in the finals. 2023, they lost in the semifinals. They're always there. So it's a little bit different. I don't look at that as them playing an FCS school. Even though it was, I don't look at that. Some of the things that were great, and in 2022, this same North Dakota State team, it was not the same team, but 2 years ago, they lost to Arizona by 3 at Arizona. So it's not like they can't compete. It's not like they don't have talent, especially regular FBS D1 talent. They've got talent. It's just about where they play, and I think that the divisions have a lot to do with school size, I guess. But nevertheless, that's not some scrub that you necessarily are supposed to blow out. Couple of things though for Colorado. I will say this: they only give up 1 sack. That was a huge. Now I didn't get to watch the game. I got to see bits and pieces, highlights, and of course the stuff that went circling around the web. But they only give up 1 sack. Shedeur obviously is cooking. Travis Hunter, 3 touchdowns. He's playing both sides of the ball. That dude's an animal. Travis Hunter is an animal. And I'm not sure how, like, what cloth he's cut from, what breed he is, but he's an animal. Shedeur Sanders, glad to see that he's back out here and playing well, and he looks good early. And so yeah, we'll see what's up next with Colorado when they play a team with more talent. They're in the Big 12 this year. It's not the Pac-12 anymore. They're in the Big 12, but no Texas, no Oklahoma. So they're playing the likes of the Baylors and the Utahs and the. Well, actually, I don't know. Is Utah in the Big 12? I don't know. Let me look that up so that I'm not mistaken here. But long story less long. Colorado, that's fine. That's fine. You got to win. And what you're looking for is like making sure that you don't have to, like you're looking for progress. Quite frankly, that's what you're looking for. You're looking for progress. You're trying to make sure that the things that you saw were a problem last year are not going to be a problem this year, right? So, like I mentioned, only one sack. Obviously, your quarterback played well. So, yeah, Utah is in that. Kansas is in the Big 12. Colorado's in the Big 12. TCU, that type of stuff. Yeah, just had to look that up to make sure I wasn't giving y'all no false information.